Hi, I'm Parker, and I use they, them pronouns.
And I'm Mike, and I am he, him, and whatever else fits. And this is the Graphic Novel Podcast. Welcome to our show.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah, this is a show where we read graphic novels or sometimes some short comics, zines, things like that. And then we do a review, discussion, and we can talk about a lot of different things on this show.
Sometimes we talk about divorce. Sometimes we talk about abortion. A lot of times we talk about queer issues.
We have kids and relationships, all different kinds of stuff. So so it's a cool show, and we're glad you're listening. And if you like our show, we'd appreciate if you go to
Twitter, go to Apple Podcasts, and give us a great rating. And if you leave a review, we may read it on the air.
And if you visit us at anchor.fm, Graphic Novel Podcast, you can actually leave a voice message that we can play on the air.
That's exciting. Do you remember growing up and hearing your voice, thinking how cool it would be to hear your voice on the radio? Yeah.
All right. Well, and on to today's show.
Hi, Mike.
Hello, Parker.
How are you doing today?
You know what? I'm doing good.
We're recording early.
We're recording early morning, but late. We're one day late.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, don't worry. It'll be out. It'll be out today. I know whenever you're listening to it. But yeah,
I'm so sorry to all of our fans who
we just get caught up
want
in
it
life.
on Friday. Yeah,
we get caught
there's
up in
so
life.
Much going on.
And we, with the full-time day job, it's just hard sometimes. And don't worry, we're gonna. My days off are changing, so we should be able to get back.
Yeah,
on
we're
schedule.
Kind of still in transition period.
Yeah,
it's hard to stay on top of things.
Yeah. Anyhow, so
one day late is not too bad.
So we've got several things planned out. We decided that it would be smarter if we scheduled out all of our books that we're going to be reading.
Yeah, I mean, I know that this may come as a surprise to all of you, but normally it's like, hey, what do you want to? Why don't you just pick a book off the shelf? There's not a lot of planning to.
Yeah, I have a little more time with my job that I usually am able to read in between my breaks, and so I get ahead.
Yeah, and I have no time.
Yeah.
Really, to sit and read. So.
Exactly. So
without being interrupted constantly.
Well, yeah, and it's hard.
It's really hard.
Where I'm by myself, so
especially with the books that we read, there's not a lot of times. There's not like breaking, like the one we read this week. There was no like breaking point where no chapter endings or anything.
Right.
And I got really into it too, and so it was like, when can I stop? I would just have to stop.
Exactly. Yeah. So we've got a few more weeks left in this year of 2019, which is the end of the decade too. Wow, which is crazy. This has been we've done a lot of stuff. So on the last show of the year, I think it's the 27th. We're gonna have our top 3 books that we've reviewed so far on the show. And we'll do maybe an end of the decade roundup about ourselves too.
And we want you guys to write in or tweet. I say write in, of course, and what I mean is email.
You mean to send an old-timey pencil and paper?
Get your quill out.
Get the forever stamp and send us a letter.
Do they have stamps anymore? Or are they all forever stamps?
No, you can get them at Costco. You can buy 100 stamps.
But they're forever stamps. Is that all that there is? They don't.
No, you can still buy commemorative stamps that have numbers on them.
Do you know what the price is at this point?
You know what? I don't know anymore.
I don't either. I used to know. Last I remember, it was like 43 cents. It's got to be more than that now.
I believe it is. Yeah.
Anyway, what I was gonna say is send us what books of the ones that we've read, what ones you have either read because you listened to the show and went, oh, that book sounds really interesting, or books that we've read that you enjoyed. Well, maybe you read them before we did,
and we'd also like to know what your favorites are that we maybe haven't read.
Yeah, because, some suggestions would be cool too.
I mean, we're scheduled out for 2 months, but we could always shuffle things around. That's not an issue.
Of course, since I just told them that we go and just grab some of the show.
Well, no, I mean, we've got enough books for the next 2 months, so I'm sure we're going to put things in there. We both got our passes to Emerald City Comic Con.
Yeah. So wait, I think we got that last week.
Did we mention that though?
I think we did.
Okay, so that's going to be awesome.
But that's exciting. Yes.
Yeah, that's going to be in March.
Worth mentioning more than one time.
Yeah, definitely. We'll be mentioning it more as we get there. We're just going to be there for one day, so we're just going to pack as much in one day as we can. And
I think one day will be plenty for the first time.
And also, I know there's something going on right now, but we started using Hoopla. And
wait, what do you mean? There's something going on right now?
Well, with Seattle Public Library, they got a whole thing going on with this transphobic speaker that's going to be there, and hopefully they do the right thing and they cancel it because it's not until February. Yeah. I think the backlash might be too much.
Yeah, otherwise
it's already happened in Toronto.
I will be there protesting if they choose to let it go.
Yeah, it's not a good thing that they've allowed, but they have an amazing zine and comic book collection, and they have a ton of them available through Hoopla online. And that's
so if you're a member of the Seattle Public Library, which is a great library usually, then you can go on Hoopla and just type in your member number and PIN, and you can connect it and get access to all these awesome things.
Most libraries have
audiobooks and stuff
that
too.
Yes, I read somewhere that you can get movies too. I don't know if
movies.
I don't know if it's through Hoopla. But,
okay.
But yeah, that's pretty.
Libraries are awesome spaces.
Libraries are, and when I was a bike messenger, the library was one of the places when I wasn't researching a book. Was one of the places that I would go sometimes and spend hours.
Yeah.
Especially in the winter in Buffalo.
Yeah.
It was a great place to get out.
I don't remember ever going to. I mean, we had like a little school library, but the library that we lived out in the middle of nowhere, and so the city library was just for people who lived in the city limits, and so we didn't really have access to it and never used it. And I wish we had, because I feel like it would have opened up such a different world to me.
Yeah, I used to go and I'd sit and read paperbacks of like Perry Mason and stuff, and read those books. And there was actually a cafe in there too, so I'd eat lunch in there sometimes. It was good. Get a salad.
But even if you don't belong to the Seattle Library, Hoopla is available with other libraries too. Even the one from the small town that we were living in, they had Hoopla on there. They don't have access to as many different books, but it's still worth it.
Yes,
I feel like
definitely. And we're probably going to use that for some of our books because our budget is limited. And
yes, it does cost money to make a podcast, believe it or not.
And these books, and we like to, and we'll get to it when we read that book. But we'll talk about that more.
Yeah,
the reason that we even started doing that.
Yeah.
But let's see. I've got a preview this week.
Okay.
Yeah. Where is that?
It's a very important. I'm sure that you.
are
well prepared for it.
It is. It was from Titan Comics. And
I'm always pleased with the number of previews that they send.
They send so many.
It's so cool.
They do a lot of comics, but they do quite a few graphic novels. And the one they sent was Rivers of London. I wasn't sure if I'd like it. It's this book was called Action at a Distance, and it's World War II / Wizards. So it's this combination of stuff that is pretty funky. And I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't sure if I was gonna like it.
World War II. That's kind of fitting for our book this week.
It is.
I mean,
so there's a whole
there's
a whole series. Yeah, in a bad way. A whole series of these books, and they're done by what's his name, Ben Aronovich, and with some other people, of course. But it's a cool story. This one. It's about these characters set in the 1950s. Now it's after the war, and they're trying to find this guy who was basically there's a murderer, and then they find out that this guy is he's got the same powers as the main character. They can like stop a plane in mid flight and have it crash to the ground and stuff. And they use this power during World War II.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was pretty cool stuff. But this guy is out killing women. So they're trying to track him down, and eventually.
Oh, I see.
That's what they're using, their powers and stuff, and it's a pretty cool story. The art is good. The art reminds me of. We talked about this before, and we saw it on some like when you take a photo and you use like a filter that turns it into a cartoon.
Yeah.
And that's the style that they do, and it's.
I think that mimics this style.
Yes, that's probably what it mimics. Exactly. And that's what this looks like, because it's realistic.
It's really realistic.
Yeah, it's awesome. Cool. Yeah, that I just love the art, and definitely if you get a chance, check it out. Rivers of London.
When does it come out? Or is it out already?
I'm not sure. There's a whole series. They're all standalone. And you could read one if in any order, but apparently if you go from the beginning, it tells a story all the way along. So it might be something I want to check out.
Interesting.
Rivers of London from Titan Comics. Check it out. All right. What are we doing this week, Parker?
This week, we read a book that you may want to...
some of you may have read already.
Yeah. When did it come out?
2018.
So it's been out for a while. It's by George Takei, and it is called They Called Us Enemy.
Yeah, we've heard this. We've heard about that. We've discussed this. You and I have discussed this before, and his whole story.
Yeah.
And that's why I wanted to check it out. It's been on my list of things to read.
Yeah.
And it's a sad part of American history.
Yeah, but one that doesn't, number one, get talked about.
At all.
Yeah. And which, of course, leads to the repeating, which is...
happening right now.
We got kids in cages still.
Yep.
Yeah. So, in case you can't tell by what we're talking about already, we'll just warn you now that this book is talking about when the Japanese were incarcerated.
Put in internment camps.
Yeah.
It was almost primarily Japanese on the West Coast.
Yeah. So if that's something that you are sensitive to or maybe not ready to hear, I mean, obviously I think that probably just saying the title of the book would steer you clear of it. But just in case that's something you're sensitive to, this might not be the episode for you. Would you like to tell us about George Takei?
Yeah, George Takei is best known for his portrayal of Mr. Sulu in the acclaimed television and film series Star Trek. Acclaimed afterwards because it only lasted one season on TV, but it became a cult favorite and still on TV today.
Wait a minute. There was only one season of Star Trek?
Yeah, it did not last. Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah. He's an but it lasted forever.
Yes.
They made 6 movies.
Well, and then the whole Star Trek series.
Oh, yeah. And all the television series, all the different
spun
ones.
off onto
Deep Space Nine. And
Next Generation.
Was Voyager one?
Yep.
Yeah. See, there was a whole bunch of them. Yeah. But the original one did not last, which is so weird.
Yeah.
So he's best known for that. And he's an actor, justice activist, social media mega power with millions of Twitter followers, New York Times bestselling author, originated the role of Sam Kimura and Oji-chan in the Broadway musical Allegiance, and subject of To Be Takei, a documentary on his life and career. Takei's acting career spanned 5 decades with more than 40 feature films and hundreds of television guest starring roles to his credit. So that's a basic. He's a queer man, a gay man.
Yep.
And a supporter of the LGBT community.
Right.
And this book is about his life from birth until recently.
Yeah. So here's the synopsis. George Takei has captured hearts and minds worldwide with his captivating stage presence and outspoken commitment to equal rights. But long before he braved new frontiers in Star Trek, he woke up as a 4-year-old boy to find his own birth country at war with his father's, and the entire family forced from their home into an uncertain future. In a stunning graphic memoir, Takei visits his haunting childhood in American concentration camps as one of over 100,000 Japanese Americans imprisoned by the U.S. government during World War II, experience the forces that shaped an American icon and America itself in this gripping tale of courage, country, loyalty, and love.
Yeah. Who was the artist? Do you have that?
I can look it up right now, because it's listed here right in this thing. Justin Eisinger
and Stephen Scott.
and Stephen Scott.
Yeah. Yes. Goodreads gives it a 4.5 out of 5 with how many? I don't know how many reviews it's got. But this is a book about how
Harmony Becker too.
Harmony Becker. I thought there was a woman involved.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. Here's a picture of all 4 of them.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So basically what happened, for those of you that are unaware, is 1941, 42, that Pearl Harbor was bombed. And suddenly Japanese Americans were the enemy.
Yeah.
The president, governors, especially on the West Coast, California's governor was afraid that these Japanese were suddenly going to become enemies of the state. And
even though they were second and third generation.
Yes, exactly. He's a third. Well, his father was from Japan, but mother
grew up in America,
and his mother was born in America.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, he's on his mother's side, he's third generation.
Yeah.
American.
Yeah.
He's second generation American, but because his mother was born here.
But yeah, okay.
But still, we'll talk about that later because I'm second generation Italian too. I mean, it's no different.
Right. Exactly, except
American. Yes,
you're white.
Yeah. So what happens is they all freak out and they say, "Hey, we've got to take these people, and we can tell who they are. We can tell by their eyes. We know that they're different, and we can grab them all and we can put them in cages.
Because it's easy when people look different, then you can treat them differently."
Yep. And so that's what.
I'm sorry, we have to correct ourselves.
Okay, go ahead.
I just got back to the beginning of the book because we read it in an electronic version. The art is by Harmony Becker. It was written by George Takei, Justin Eisinger, and Stephen Scott. But the art
she did
is done by Harmony Becker.
I thought so. I couldn't remember though. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't remember either.
Yep.
I knew that there were several names. I feel really bad.
It's okay. We fixed it. We corrected it in midstream here, so we're good.
Midstream.
But that's good. It's from Top Shelf Productions. Yes. Top Shelf came out in the 1990s when I was doing comics TV.
Oh, really?
I'm pretty sure they were one of the ones. Yeah. I'm thinking of Top Cow. That was another one.
Top Cow?
Yeah, that was one too. Oh. Anyhow, there was a lot of them. And it's interesting, the comics too. I was reading something that said that comic shops are starting to flourish again because of indie comics and graphic novels and stuff. Mm-hmm. Indie comics were huge in the 90s. It was superheroes and Batman and stuff. Uh-huh. That's when the Dark Knight Returns came out, and that was huge. That was a huge comic, and it was great. I remember reading it. But indie comics, that's all I reviewed, and there was so many of them. So I don't know. I stopped reading comics, so I'm guessing maybe in the early 2000s, through the 2000s, before it got to the 2010s, that maybe comics just died out.
Yeah.
And now they're having a resurgence now with people like this telling true stories.
Yeah.
And young adults are jumping onto the bandwagon, reading them like crazy. And
I had a friend tell me the other day that they were getting lectured by multiple teachers that their children needed to start reading real books and not graphic novels. And I'm like, what kind of teacher is this? Like, how do they not realize that this is real books? Like,
I mean, people have known this for years. I said this years ago. My kid's reading a comic book. They're reading. They still have to read words.
Uh-huh.
Yes, it's not a long, detailed, Edgar Allan Poe or Hemingway or Moby Dick or anything.
But it still encourages imagination and creativity.
Yes, our child has gone the gamut. At 6, they read all the Harry Potter books.
Mm-hmm.
Now they read like all these Dave Pilkey, Diary of a Wimpy Kid, and who's the other one? Captain Underpants.
That's Dave Pilkey.
Yeah, Captain Underpants. All these, which are huge million sellers.
Million sellers.
Yes, and million copy sellers. Whatever.
Million
they
sellers.
Sell million sellers.
Yes, million sellers.
But point is, our child reads everything.
Yes, they do.
They read like dictionaries on Star Wars Lego parts, and they read and over, and they read these Minecraft books now. They're into Minecraft on how to build things, and they just love to read, which is an amazing thing.
Yes. Why would you ever discourage reading?
Yes.
Of any kind. Teachers.
And that goes to the story here. At one point there was a man who went out of his way to bring books to these people in these internment camps.
Yeah.
And like George growing up, that became their home. They were protected inside the barbed wire of these camps.
Well, when you make them feel like outside is dangerous, then.
Yes. And it was.
Yeah.
It was. You can see photos if you go online of, Japs go home or no Japs served here, those kind of things.
Yeah.
And those were things that it's no different than saying the same thing about black people. It just,
yeah.
Not that long after that, 10 years later, then you had the same thing, the white and the black drinking fountains, and all this stuff. And it's just horrible, horrible things that America keeps fucking repeating over and over. And at the end of his book, it's 2018 and he's got fucking kids in cages.
Yeah.
He talks about how we haven't learned our lesson and we're repeating it because that law was never made into law.
Yeah.
Now Ronald Reagan made the first public apology from the government.
Yeah.
And then was it George H.W. when they got reparations?
Yes.
Yes. They were promised 20,000 per person. There was 120,000.
Which was 4 years of this child's life.
120,000 people were interred. There was only 60,000 alive at this point.
Yeah.
And they were all awarded $20,000 in reparations. But
which George Takei then
donated to start a museum or towards a museum that was for this.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Yeah.
Let me look.
Yeah. But
it's at the end, of course, when I just scrolled to the beginning.
But he, what was I saying there? It was about the money.
The money, yeah.
The money then didn't come until George H.W. Bush. It was actually signed by him.
Right, exactly. And that's what's like, and I mean, we've done horrible things in the past, but I feel like I don't remember learning about this in school. Do you remember learning about this?
I didn't learn about any of this. We didn't learn about anything because actually in school, when I was learning this stuff, I didn't even get to World War II. So we didn't even barely learn about World War II. Well,
really?
Wait, I'm sorry. We learned about the World Wars, but not in the same way. I was thinking Vietnam, but
well, so
probably because it was too close to Vietnam when I went to school.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, maybe.
The history wasn't complete yet.
Well, I remember learning about World War II. I don't remember the details of what I learned, but I also my grandfather was at Pearl Harbor and on one of the ships there, and so he wrote a book about what he saw, and I remember him writing, calling them Japs, and
of course,
even as
because they were enemies. The Japanese people that were soldiers were enemies.
Right. He didn't talk about like this side of it, obviously. But he I remember like even then, like it was cringy to read it as a kid. And I don't remember really my parents. I think it was my mom that kind of, well, because it's her father. So she would, she showed us the book or whatever that he had written. But I remember like feeling really weird about reading that.
Yeah. Now,
because it felt wrong.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's no different than not the Russian, the Germans also. They weren't treated the same way. They were not loved, but you could look at a German person and you wouldn't know that they were German. So they weren't treated the same way in America. But afterwards, people knew who they were. They knew the German names, and many German people in Buffalo, they moved out of the area on the east side where a lot of them had lived. They changed their names so their names were more generic, so they didn't sound German. And like the German culture just seemed to disappear in Buffalo.
I mean,
and it probably happened in other cities too.
I'm sure, but you can't completely compare that because you could. What?
You're right.
Okay, because you can't disguise what you look like.
No, I agree 100%. And we mentioned earlier. I mean,
it was that easy. You change your last name, and you know what I mean.
My grandparents were here in the 1940s. My mother was born in 42.
Oh, okay.
They were first generation Italian. I mean, they were Italian from Italy. And Italy was at war with the U.S. too. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no reason that they could have taken them too.
Yeah,
They could have
exactly.
put my grandparents and my mother and her siblings all could have been put in camps like this too.
Yeah.
But for some reason, the Japanese were the ones because they attacked Pearl Harbor. I think that's why.
Well, but they were easy to see that there was a difference.
They attacked Pearl Harbor.
Look at the way that we
Germany
treat the
had,
Muslims
they might have
after 9/11.
I agree.
If they look different, if they're easy to pick out of a crowd, then that's who you are. That's who the enemy is.
And these people, these idiots, the Sikh religion that wears the turban, the headdress.
Yes.
They are not even part of this.
No.
They are peaceful people.
Yeah.
But because they wear the headdress like that, they are considered an enemy by so many fucking idiots.
Yes.
You know, you see it all the time. A lot of them drive semis. I see them on the road all the time.
Oh, yeah.
From Canada.
Yeah.
You know, from BC. But it's my life would probably be completely different if my family had ended up in an internment camp like this.
Of course it would be.
Because maybe I wouldn't be here. You know,
Probably not.
It would have been completely different.
Yeah.
You know, but I think the reason was because they were easy to identify.
Right.
I mean, they didn't just look at them. They actually had names and stuff on documents, but they knew who they were.
Yeah.
They were easy to see, but Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. Germany didn't. Italy didn't. And I think that was the main impetus. But Warren, I can't think of what his first name was. He was the Attorney General of California.
Oh,
he's the one who pushed for it.
Yep.
He became the white supremacist, 3-time governor, and went on to be the fucking head of the Supreme Court.
Yep.
The Warren, anybody that hears that name Warren tied to the Supreme Court knows who he is.
Yeah.
And he was one of the ones that was really behind all this.
Yeah.
Horrible human being.
Absolutely.
Horrible human being. I put him up there with all the fucking Confederate shit. Yeah. I mean, he's as bad as any of them.
Yep. Absolute trash. Yeah.
Just because you have a law degree and you become, the head, what the hell is it called? The head of the Supreme Court, Chief Justice of the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
That doesn't make you any better. You're still scum.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, you are scum.
Do you want to take a little breath there?
No, I'm good.
Okay. It looked like your blood pressure's getting up there.
I'm sure it is.
Something.
That's beside the point.
I know.
As white people, we have a responsibility to put this kind of shit.
No, I know. You're absolutely right. It's and to learn about it and educate about it too, because like I said, we
should let our child read it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Let's see anyway. The other thing I was going to say was about the Puyallup Fair. At the Puyallup Fair, they have there was an internment camp there, and they have this like tiny little booth thing that you can go in and learn about the history of this horrible thing that is part of our history. And that's probably the first time that I really got any education. I don't remember when they put that display up, but I remember seeing it when we went just a few years ago. But I mean, I was very young when we went to the fair before, so I don't know if I saw it then. But my dad was really into history, and so I know that we talked about Native history a lot, but I don't remember getting into the details of the horror that happened to Japanese Americans.
Well, I just read something on Twitter that the something that said that it's pretty sad that Native Americans have to pay to go into museums to see their history and artifacts.
Yeah.
I mean, and there was another thing somebody posted about Eskimo is a derogatory term.
Yes.
And they prefer Native American or
Indigenous.
I don't even know if that, but First Nations.
First Nations, that's what it is.
But they also have the Inuit, and there's other
names
too.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of things that we need to own up to, we need to fix, and that's starting with these kind of things. We just need to, and going back to the reparations, if they can give reparations to the Japanese Americans, I think they owe it to the black people of this country.
Oh my God, yes, absolutely.
An apology, and get fucking past it. Then end it. Give them money, and let's move
there's so much that has to happen in order for moving on.
Well, that we can never move on because it happened. We can't.
I mean, I think that
it needs to
honestly,
be
if we start to
education.
do, if we start, what is that? The income.
Oh yeah, the basic income that
basic income. Let's roll it out with people of color. Get them their money first.
Oh yes, and you know how that would go with the fucking white supremacists and the conservative, because they're already on welfare. So we're going to give them more money now.
That's terrible.
Yeah, that's exactly how
they absolutely deserve payment before any white people do.
Yeah, they do. They do. Yes, payment national income? Better schools in a lot of areas, and a lot of
so many things.
You know what? There was just a study done by WSU that in our state, a lot of weed shops are in low income neighborhoods and industrial areas because that's the only place that they're allowed to go. And who is that? They said that for the most part, people of color and brown people are not going to those stores. They're getting their weed somewhere else. But that's where the stores are, and they're in their neighborhoods, and that's just another thing because you don't want it in some high class white neighborhood.
Yeah, exactly.
Even in the community we live in, they don't allow it.
Nope. Yep.
They don't allow it because
all the rich white people live there.
I mean, we don't qualify, but
no, there's always going to be outliers. There's always people that don't fit in. There's people of color that live here. Honestly, the school that they go to is far more racially diverse than the one that they went to.
By far. We also lived out in the booties then.
I know, but you know what I'm saying.
No, it is more diverse than I thought it was, too.
Yeah.
I mean, even in this district, they have Russian on their paperwork. I mean, there's quite a few Russian people along with a lot of other nationalities. Yeah. So it is good. It's a good thing for our child to see.
Yeah.
You're not brought up. I was brought up in a school with one black boy.
Yeah. I had two black kids in my high school.
And that was it.
I mean, we had Latin, some Latinx culture.
And that black kid was mentally slow too. So that didn't help matters either. With all the people in my school that were already racist.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I don't remember.
I know they were racist,
anything.
But
I don't remember ever seeing anything negative towards him. But I'm sure he got it.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Anyhow, so George Takei, he had originally wrote his book, I think biography or autobiography, and he thought that this would be a way to get more people access to this, especially younger people.
Yeah.
And I think this...
Because, again, we don't learn about this shit in history books. No. It's so frustrating.
And this book is so good at teaching that. This is something they could easily teach in schools. The story, there's nothing about it that can't be discussed.
And it's not like he doesn't
it can be discussed in elementary schools all the way to high schools. There's no reason. Colleges, for that matter. No, I mean, it teaches things that nobody knows.
And he doesn't get real graphic or anything.
No, exactly.
About the violence and stuff that occurred. So I think that absolutely it should be in our schools. There's something else I was going to say. Oh, one of the things I loved so much about this book was seeing his relationship with his father and how
later.
No, I'm talking early on when the older kids were trying to get him in trouble and convinced him to say to attempt to say son of a bitch. But,
right.
But they said it was Sakuna Beach or something.
Oh yeah, Sakuna Beach. Yes. But the way you would say it, Sakuna Beach.
So the kids, the older kids said, go up to the guard tower, the guards in the guard tower, and tell him scream at them all the things that you want, and then say at the end, Sakuna. Well, yes, Sakuna Beach, but say it.
Well, yell ice cream. candy,
Yeah.
cake,
all the things that you want.
Mhm.
And then say Sakuna Beach, but you have to say it exactly the right way and or else they're gonna they could shoot at you.
Yes, but if you say it the right way, they're gonna give you all those things you
But
asked
if you
for.
say it just the right way, then then he goes and he does it, and then they tell him to get out of there, and I think that it threw rocks or something at him.
Oh, they did. They threw a rock at him, and he ran home.
And he
couldn't understand why.
Didn't. He's like, obviously, I said it wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
But then he goes right to his father
and tells him,
and tells his father, and his father explains exactly what it was and what was. I don't think he said that he was trying to. He wasn't trying to say. He didn't explain it that it was son of a bitch. He just said that it was a bad. No, George says that later he learned that it was
that's what it was.
Bitch.
But they just said those older boys.
It was a bad word, and it's not a word that he should use.
That boy was a bad boy. He shouldn't have been telling you that.
Yes, yes. And but I just love that. And there were several times that he came back to his father and like explained things that had happened and asked questions. And his father always gave him the answers and at a relatable, an age appropriate response. And I just loved that they had that kind of relationship where I mean, like things were bad. They could have they could have not had that good of a relationship. And I'm sure plenty of people didn't because they were so
caught up
in everything, because I can't even imagine the trauma. And it was really heartwarming to see the relationship that they had and see that they were raising their kids in a way that the kids were comfortable enough to come and ask them, like, what does this mean? Why was this way? And that, and sometimes the answer was, it's an adult thing, like, the no-nos. And, and so sometimes that was the answer, but the kids still felt comfortable enough to come talk to them. So I mean, that was just so heartwarming to read.
Well, and then you see later on when he's a teenager, he would ask his father questions, like they'd have after dinner conversations, and sometimes they'd get into arguments because as he learned more, and when he went to college, he started reading books and he learned more about what had happened. First of all, he couldn't find all of it. There wasn't really anything, and his father would tell him things.
But he also learned it from the outside perspective.
Yes,
so he lived it as a child, and that gives you one perspective of it as a child, because you don't understand all the complexities that are happening. And so then you're hearing from the outside perspective, you're learning about it, and that's a whole other ball of wax. And so then he would come to his father and say, well, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do this? Like, you could have protected me if you had done this. And his father, unlike he does say that a lot of other people wouldn't discuss it. It wasn't something that they were able to discuss, but because they had this relationship, he was able to discuss these things. And he was kind of a jerk to his dad. And his dad just said, I was protecting you. I was doing what I could. Like,
the one time he did admit that he probably made the wrong decision, that he should have done something different. But
because we're all human, right?
Because his father, though, but two things. His father became a leader. He had owned a friggin' dry cleaning business before they took it away. Oh, and that's something we don't even discuss.
Oh my God.
They fucking just allowed, these people were given like an hour to get all their shit together and leave, and that was it. They were taken away. They had to get on buses and trains.
And they found like the farms. Yes, that was so disgusting.
Well, hold on.
Sorry, are we giving the whole book away? I don't want to give the whole book away.
But people might know about this stuff. This is about the internment camps. I mean, some people might know. The Japanese were forced to give up everything they owned,
right?
And white people could just take it without consequence.
Yeah.
Farms, they were forced to do what?
They were they were told that if they didn't keep them up, then they were in trouble. But then also, then people, like, they left their farm equipment, because you can't take farm equipment on a train when you're forced, into a camp. And so that was just up for grabs. They would take it, they would sell it.
Yep. The state would.
Yeah, absolutely.
The state and the counties, whatever, the cities, yes.
Just
But
horrific.
His father then decided, he was a smart businessman, and he decided to become a leader, and he helped people the block manager in the camp, and that
multiple camps that they went to.
Several times, and he was elected this way, but it helped him, and he did this. The sad thing was that his father died in 1979. He never got to see the apology. He never got any reparations, which probably wouldn't have mattered to him anyhow.
Right.
But the apology was probably something that he really needed.
Yeah. Well, because they made them, sign loyalty pledges and shit.
Well, his mother, at one point, they're like, okay, look, you have your choice. You can be sent back to Japan.
To a place that she has never lived.
Well, she did.
I'm sorry, she did live there. A place that she doesn't have family. She doesn't.
They did. They had grandparents there.
Oh my God, why are you doing this?
Because it's true. Remember when the bomb?
She doesn't have. Yes,
right, but
I
that's
do.
not her
But
home.
she doesn't.
She's an American citizen.
That's the point I'm getting at.
There you go.
She was an American citizen. She was born in America.
Yep.
That is her, life. And so she goes back there. Yeah, maybe her grandparents are alive, and she would go live with her grandparents as an adult, as a 30 something. Was she 30 by the time?
I don't know. 20s probably.
Yeah, maybe 20s.
Yeah,
but still,
exactly.
Completely.
She ended up. She thought.
Can you imagine? You're born here. You're. This is your life, and you're just you look different, so you're out of here.
Yeah, it's.
Unless you sign a pledge that you'll fight in the army, and that you will like.
But they didn't trust them anyhow.
Exactly. Like, how can you?
But they did. They did. There was a whole unit that went over there and lost how much? Half of their unit.
Huge.
But they went over there to prove that they were Americans, and they fought in the war.
Yeah.
But they had to be in one unit. They did the same thing to the black people. I couldn't
fight in a war.
They did the same thing to the black people and Native Americans. Just
exactly
so horrible.
Our history is
it is fraught with horrible things, and right now we're living through, hopefully through an impeachment that goes through, and if all goes well, the douchebag in charge will either be thrown out of office or leave.
At least douchebags are,
I agree, but he's a horrible person. He's just the other world leaders laughing at him is the best thing.
I mean, it's not. It's good.
I'm sorry. He's a horrible human being. His wife tweets. She didn't type it because she can't spell either.
She can't. Well, English is her second language, right?
It doesn't matter.
Yes, it does.
She tweets that you can't talk about children of politicians.
But she goes to visit kids.
But he goes.
With
a
jacket on that says "I don't care."
And he puts down Greta Thunberg, a 16-year-old girl and young woman, and just
autistic
all these people. He's probably said things about David Hogg before too. I mean,
I'm sure.
I mean, just
if not said it himself, he's definitely retweeted stuff.
Exactly. Oh, I was going through his Twitter stream last night, and I almost wanted to
do that to yourself?
Because I was looking for something on there that somebody had said, but he just retweets all these fucking people with conspiracy theories and everything. It's just, anyhow, it's a horrible time, and hopefully we can get through this, or our democracy will not survive. It will not survive another 4 years of this.
I can't imagine.
It will be decimated to the point that it will take another 50 years to fix it. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyhow, George Takei, They Called Us Enemy, an amazing book.
Amazing book about our history.
The art is great.
Yes.
We never even discussed it.
She did a fabulous job. Yes.
The art is wonderful. The story is great. And it really conveys this part of our history that shouldn't have had to been told.
Shouldn't have happened.
Shouldn't have happened.
But it needs to be told.
I'm sorry. That's what I meant.
I know.
You know what I meant. It shouldn't have happened, but it needs to be told. And yeah, it's great. And thank you to Mr. Takei for telling this story, because it's great.
And he met Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
He did.
That was and marched with him.
And remember, there's other stuff that happened too. But read the book; it's awesome. There's other stuff going on. It's a good book, really good.
Yeah, it's all black and white art too. Did we say that?
No,
I don't
we
think
didn't.
we did. But yeah.
Anyhow, so next week we'll have another great book and more good stuff. And please visit us on Apple Podcasts, Graphic Novel Podcasts. Review us, help us build our audience. If you like us, retweet us.
Yeah, share. That's one of the number one things you can do. I know. I mean, like I said earlier in the podcast, like doing this costs money, and so if you have some money to spare and you want to support us, you can always become a patron and join our patreon.com/
Yeah, we do have a bonus episode available only for patrons.
Wow.
Yeah, Q&A with us.
Yeah, and more to come too.
Yeah. So until next time, I'm Mike.
And I'm Parker.
And this is the Graphic Novel Podcast.
thanks for listening. If you enjoy listening to our podcast, make sure that you like, share, give us a great rating. We love to hear back. You can find us on Twitter at Graphic Novel Pod, or you can check out our Instagram at Graphic Novel Podcast.
Or you can visit our website. We got a brand new website. It is graphicnovelpodcast.com. Or you can send us a comment or question or any kind of thing like that.
Yeah, we love hearing from our listeners.
Request for a book to be reviewed or anything like that to graphicnovelpodcast@gmail.com. And biggest thing, if you're listening to the podcast and you like it, visit your favorite podcast distribution host like iTunes or whatever, and give us a review. Give
Stitcher.
Stitcher, Breaker, all of them, and give us a review and stars, because that's...
Hey, if you give us 5 stars in a review, we may read it on there.
Yes, we will definitely, and that will help us expand the number of people listening to our show.
That's the best way that we can share our show, is by our listeners.
That's right. So thanks for listening again this week.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.